Hello friends, my name's Real Emile, and welcome back to some more Reach the Peak, the show where you guys recommend the cars, and then I take them up our hill climb course to see which one can come out on top. Today I have 5 vehicles for you here as usual, and we're going to be kicking things off with a rather interesting vehicle. This is the 2015 Radical RXC Turbo, 454 horsepower. 500 foot-pound of torque, 2,072 pounds of weight. It is an S2 class car, 967 MPI when equipped with the snow tyres. It is the most powerful vehicle here today, the torquiest vehicle here today, the lightest vehicle here today, and the highest MPI vehicle here today. So, on paper, this thing is going to obviously be the fastest car here today. However, as we've seen with the track toys before, they are very much a mixed bag up this course. Cars like the Donkervoort and the Caterham have struggled immensely, same with the BAC Mono. We've had a couple of track cars not do too terribly, but again, it really is a mixed bag. The problem with these track cars is they have a lot of power sort of wanting to get through the chassis very quickly. Usually they're rear-wheel drive, they don't weigh very much, they have very, very hard suspension, and all of that does not correlate to doing well on a snowy, bouncy hill climb. The Radical, though, it was actually pretty darn decent, probably the best driving track car I've driven up here, and as far as it works in game as well, yeah, it's the best driving track car in the game. The Aerial Atom, Caterham, Donkervoort, you know, they're all pretty darn tricky cars to drive, even on the road. The Radical on the road is flawless pretty much. It's a really very, very excellent handling car, and up here, you know, it's pretty good. It is pretty great for what it is, and well, comparing it to other cars as well, other rear wheel drive cars, it's good. I think the fact that this thing has a little bit more weight than your usual track car, you know, 2,000 pounds is not heavy by a long shot, but compared to the 1,100 pounds for Caterham, yeah, it isn't a lot of power, it isn't a lot of weight, and it really helps it in that regard. So yeah, the Radical, good car, very good car. I'm sure if you put all-wheel drive on this thing, actually, you could make a rather interesting hill climb special, almost. That would be a pretty interesting thing to see. I'd certainly like to see that if anyone wants to build one of those. Anyways, next up, 2009 Honda S2000 CR, 237 horsepower, 162 foot-pound of torque, 2,813 pounds of weight. This is an A-class car, 746 MPI when equipped with the snow tyres. So, the Honda S2000, another Honda takes to our track, and, well, historically Hondas do pretty darn well up our hill climb course. So, hopefully the S2000 should be no exception, because I really, really like the Honda S2000. It's not my favourite Honda of all time, you know, I prefer certain models of Civic and so on, but I do really like the S2000. As far as sort of convertible sports cars go, I'm not usually a huge fan of them, but yeah, the S2000 is definitely one of my favourites. I kind of maybe want to own one at some point, although, I don't know. Trying to find a clean one these days is probably quite difficult. Anyways, the S2000, what is it actually like? It is very good. It handles really very, very well. For a rear-wheel drive sports car, it handles phenomenally. I would put that down to sort of the lack of power, lack of torque, which, you know, it helps it in the handling. As far as the actual speed is concerned, it isn't the quickest thing on the planet. It's actually quite slow, especially when you start getting to the top end of the rev range. I'm not quite sure where the power sort of peaks in this car and when it drops off, but it does feel like it sort of drops off at about 7,000 RPM, which isn't right. Granted, that's only a feeling I'm getting. I don't think the actual car's like that. I think the actual peak power comes on around 8,600 RPM, but that's sort of what it feels like driving up here. It's just not a very quick vehicle, but it is a great handling vehicle. So, I mean, if you put a couple more 100 horsepowers into this, and it would probably be a very, very good driving car. I'd imagine, you know, getting that good balance of speed and handling, because, yeah, it is a good handling car as it stands from stock, and I did enjoy my time with the Honda S2000. Also, it looks great, and I love high revving engines, so yeah, the S2000 gets a big thumbs up from me in that regard. Next up, we have a car which probably should never be anywhere near a snowy hill climb, and that is the 2007 Alfa Romeo HC. This thing should be cruising along Milan or some nice European roads or something. Anyways, 450 horsepower, 354 foot-pound of torque, 3,495 pounds of weight. This is an S1 class car, 842 in PI. The 8C, we've had quite a few GT cars take the course. I guess the most comparable vehicle to this is probably the Jaguar F-Type, although in terms of statistics the F-Type has 100 more horsepower and also doesn't weigh as much. But nevertheless, the 8C is a car I do really like. I think it looks absolutely incredible, and as I found out today, this thing makes an absolutely orgasmic noise. This might be one of the best sounding cars I have ever driven up this course. It sounds absolutely phenomenal. Anyways, as far as the actual things go, it's another great car. There's been a lot of great cars today, apparently, and this is definitely one of the better handling GT cars in the game. You know, GT cars usually don't do very well. They're rear-wheel drive, they're kind of heavy, but, you know, with that being said, the Alfa, it probably benefits from the lack of power compared to some of the GT cars. You know, Aston Martins, Jaguars, you know, they're pushing 500, 600 horsepower. The 8C, you know, it makes do with 450. And it doesn't weigh as much as a Jaguar or an Aston Martin, and yeah, that just ultimately helps it out going up here. It's a way more nimble. Whether it'll help it out time-wise or not, that remains to be seen at the end, but I liked driving the Alfa 8C. I thought it was a really very, very good car to drive. So, while it may not look like it should be anywhere near a snowy hill climb course, while it may look like it should be just destroying B roads, give the 8C a whirl, I guess, if you want a slightly interesting off-road rear-engined car. Rear-wheel drive car. You will not be disappointed. I'm probably quite surprised. Anyways, next up we have the 1992 Ford Falcon EB GT, 268 horsepower, 310 foot-pound of torque, 3,631 pounds of weight. This is an A-class car. 741 in PI. It is the heaviest vehicle here today. The Ford Falcon EB, again, another Falcon. There's been a lot of these things take to the course recently, and that's because there's a lot of them in Forza Horizon 3. The EB, probably one of my more preferred of the Falcons. I like sort of the 80s, 90s muscle cars. We've been over this. I don't know why, considering they were kind of crap, but cars like the IROC Z I like, and the Fox Body Mustangs I kind of like as well. And essentially the EB GT, as far as I can tell, is a four-door Fox Body, and I like the Fox Body, I like four-door cars, so the EB GT gets a good mark in my book for that, I guess. As far as actually driving it, it's heavy. It looks 90s in appearance, and when you sort of think about 90s muscle cars, it drives like a 90s muscle car, like the IROC Z, like the Firebird. Although technically that was a late 80s, but shut up. Yeah, it's heavy. It's a little bit lethargic, really. It's not hugely quick. It's quicker than the Firebird and the IROC, probably, just because it is a little bit more powerful, a bit more torquey, but yeah, it is lethargic. It will slide heavily sometimes as well. Sometimes through corners you'll be fine. Other times this thing really wants to kick its tail out, and when it wants to do that, it does lose a lot of speed. You know, that's just the way it works. If you go through a corner sliding, you're not going to be going as quick around it as you would be if you're just taking a nice clean line. You know, sorry, anyone who's played Burnout as a kid and has jumped into Forza and like, hey, I can drive. No, that's not how it works here in Forza. So, yeah, especially on a snowy course, because of course you can get the car really bogged down if you start sliding. So the Falcon, not the greatest of cars, it has to be said, unfortunately, to all of my Australian friendos. And finally today we have a car which is going to disappoint us British people. This is, well, I guess the Radical's British as well, so let's not say that. 1972 Land Rover Series III, 69 horsepower, 120 foot-pound torque, 3,097 pounds of weight. This is a D-Class car, 321 in PI when equipped with snow tyres, and yes, you heard me right, D-Class. We haven't had many D-Class cars go up the course, usually because most D-Class cars you usually get bumped into C-Class when you put snow tyres on them, but not the Land Rover. Not the Land Rover. It is the least powerful vehicle here today, it's the least torquey vehicle here today, and it is, unsurprisingly, the lowest PI car here today. In fact, probably one of the lowest PI cars we've ever had to take the course. I mean, I think the Reliant gets to 400-ish PI when equipped with snow tyres. The Isetta, I'm not too sure what that gets to. But the Land Rover is certainly one of the lowest PI cars we've ever had. Unsurprisingly, really, with those figures. You know, 69 horsepower doesn't sound too bad, or at least it doesn't to European people who are sort of used to low-powered hatchbacks, but it has 3,000 pounds of weight to lug around, and it's quite old, and that is not a good combination. I do like the Land Rover Series 3. When the DLC pack for this first came out, I was sort of very divided on whether I liked this car or not. In sort of the following weeks from that DLC pack, I've decided I do like the Series 3. I think it's an interesting addition to the game, certainly. I haven't really tried doing too much of this. I haven't really, you know, put a V8 in it and gone off-roading or anything like that, but yeah, it's you know, it's a fun car. I'm not complaining about it in any way, shape or form. As far as the Land Rover Series 3 goes, how does it drive? It is slow. It is very slow. You essentially have to max out every single gear. You may be wondering, you know, I'm going really into the red line in second and first gear and so on. You may be like, well, why aren't you shifting up? I'll tell you why I'm not shifting up, because if you shift up, you lose all of your momentum. Speaking of losing momentum, even if you do redline it, it loses speed on the hills. It is painfully slow, is the Land Rover. Of course, the advantage of a Land Rover is it will go anywhere in the world. It just takes a long time to get there, basically. As far as using the Series 3 in its stock form, don't even bother. It's just not worth it. Go for the Defender 90, which is kind of a similar vehicle. You'll much prefer that. It has a much more powerful engine. It can probably climb hills a little bit better, although I believe I tested the upgrade hero. I haven't tested any of the other, well, the normal variant of it yet, but yeah, that's because I was a bit recommended. But yeah, I would probably say go for the Defender. Alternatively, do some major work on the engine and suspension and so on in this vehicle to see if you can get it to go any faster, because yeah, it's slow. It is slow. Slow. That is the review of the Land Rover Series 3, pretty much. It's just a slow car. Anyways, on to the tyres for today, and the Radical RXC, unsurprisingly, is the fastest car today, going into 29th with a 208.896, which is actually a really very good time, especially for a track car. It beats the McLaren 650S, a bunch of Ferraris, loses out a little bit to a 458 Italia upgrade hero, but that's still really very good. For the Radical, a lot better than I was expecting it to be. Speaking of stuff better than I expected it to be, Alfa Romeo 8T goes into 38th with a 211.865, beats the Range Rover Supercharged Lexus LFA, loses out to the Lykan Hypersport. It is some 5 seconds quicker than a Jaguar F-Type, which is pretty darn phenomenal. Again, less power, less weight, helps that car a lot. Moving down the board some more, the S2000 finds itself in 82nd place with a 220.073, beats Cadillac Escalade, beats the Ute, loses out to a Challenger Hellcat, and the RX-7 FD, surprisingly enough, is a little bit quicker, and those cars have kind of similar stats, although I think the RX-7's a bit lighter. The Falcon is in 108th with a 223.644, wedges itself in between the two fastest American muscle cars we've had, the Dart and the Charger Daytona, which is kind of interesting. Like they got there a little bit off of an E30 and one of the older Falcons as well. And finally, the Land Rover Series 3 finds itself in 158th place with a 325.572, 3 seconds down on the Reliant Supervan. Although it's still quicker than the Gurkha, and that's because the Gurkha sucks at everything. It's just a terrible, terrible car. Anyways, friends, that is it for this episode of Reach the Peak. I do hope you've enjoyed. As always, if you have cars you'd like to recommend for this series, feel free to do so in the comment section below. With that all being said and done, friends, thank you all very much for watching. My name's been the Real Emile, and until next time, a farewell.